We had the most marvelous experience in Portland. A principle was revealed to me that never before have I known. On the platform, while I was conducting the class, this new principle came through. And I may say to you that it's a miracle working one, for I've already witnessed its marvels. And that principle was this. Well, we start with me. I'm sitting up here. You're looking at me. Whether or not you know it at this moment, I would not want you to judge me by the way I appear. I would not want you to judge me as to whether I'm old or young. I would not want you to judge me as to whether I'm honest or dishonest. I would not want you to judge me by any measure of judgment that you can think. And if there are some good psychologists out there who automatically know an individual when they look at him, please stop looking. I would not want to be judged that way. If I could have my way, I would have you look up here and behold the Son of God in me, and see me as I am seen by the Father. Know me as my Father knows me, as God knows me. See my spiritual identity. Do you remember how the Master said, "Who do men say that I am?" And then, "Whom do ye say that I am?" That's the way I'd like to be judged, the way Peter judged the Master and said, "Oh, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." Well, all those without spiritual vision would have said, "Oh, you're a Hebrew rabbi." Of course, he had the Hebrew rabbi's robe on. He was preaching in the Hebrew temple. So that's the way you judge him, judging through your mentality. But he didn't want to be judged that way, and so he said to the disciples, "Whom do ye, you who've been with me, you who ought to know me, whom do you say that I am?" And Peter could say, "I know, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And so, rather than to be judged by what men would say I am, I would rather, if I could, that you, turning within yourselves, would say to the Father within you, "Who is this fellow?" Because I know what the answer would be. If you turned within to the Father would say, "Know ye not, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." That's what I would like. Well, so it is. When you come to me as a patient or a student, because of my years of spiritual experience, I really don't look at you as if you're a male or a female. I don't look at you as if you're young or old. I don't look at you as if you're rich or poor, or occupy a high place or a low place. That's really of no interest to me in my spiritual capacity. When you come to me as a patient or a student, I'm looking through your eyes, because I've learned that you, the soul of you, sits behind those eyes. You may have a false face out here in the flesh, but you have no false face back there. And as long as I can see through your eyes, I can see the soul of you sitting back there. And be assured, I have worked in the prisons where there was every evidence of sin, and I have beheld the real man sitting back there and have witnessed wonders with them because of that. Not by trying to reform them humanly, not by telling them they were poor, downtrodden men who never had a chance, but by seeing through their eyes into, "I know thee who thou art." Back there sits the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is within you. And you know, one of my most joyous moments is when I can tell you that on the 9th of April, the Orthodox religious church had the greatest day that it has known for 20 centuries. The Pope of Rome visited a prison in Rome, and he said to the men, "I am not here for any reason of romance nor humanitarianism. I am here because I behold Christ incarnate in you." Can you imagine what that did to some of those men? To be told they weren't sinners, that they weren't condemned to hell forever, that someone in the world saw Christ incarnate in them. And I'll tell you why it did it to them. Because it will do it to you. There isn't any one of you who doesn't know that you are spiritually perfect, the Son of God, that if anyone could know you as you really are, they'd find that you are really a perfect being. You know that. But you know that nobody out here is judging you that way or seeing you that way. And as a rule, you're resenting what your friends and relatives see in you because they're not seeing you as you are. Even the worst sinner among you knows that you really aren't that way at all, even if you're indulging it at the moment. Every one of you knows inwardly that you're perfect. But you see, that doesn't help you a great deal. What helps you is if one individual could come along and say, take off that mask. I know you. I see that Christ lurking behind your eyes. I see the face of God in you. That would so change your nature that your whole character would change, your whole outer disposition would change, and eventually your health would change. Just one individual beholding the Christ behind your eyes, recognizing your spiritual sonship, your separateness from these material and mental laws. Well, you see, you might lie, if you like, and go home and say to your family, oh, I behold the Christ in you, but you don't really. You're just pretending. You cannot do that until your own spiritual consciousness is so developed that you really can see Christ incarnate. It takes a spiritually developed soul. The psychologist can see you as you humanly are. The members of your family can see you as you appear to be among them. But only the developed spiritual consciousness will enable you to look at any and every individual in the world and say, I behold Christ incarnate in you. When that moment happens, you are a healer, and you are a spiritual teacher, and not before. Before that time, you merely know all the words in the books. Before that time, you merely have it intellectually grasped. But you're not really a healer or a teacher until an actual experience makes it possible for you to say, I see Christ incarnate in every individual, the good ones and the bad ones, the ups and the downs. Don't you remember how Jesus had to see it in the woman taken in adultery? And believe me, that was difficult because adultery then wasn't like now. Now it's a little pastime that's smiled at. But at that time, it was punishable by death. It was a crime, adultery, a real crime, equal to murder. And yet he could look right into the eyes of the woman taken in adultery and say, neither do I condemn thee. Thy sins be forgiven thee. He could behold Christ incarnate. And the thief on the cross. Just think of crucifying a man, how terrible his crime must have been. And the master could say, you won't go to purgatory and suffer it out for years. I'm taking you into heaven with me tonight. Why? Because I behold Christ in you. I'm taking the Christ of you into heaven tonight because the Christ is already in heaven. You're already in heaven, but I'm going to reveal it to you. But he wasn't talking to a criminal. He was talking to Christ. And so, when a spiritual teacher or practitioner says to you, you are spiritual or you are the child of God, don't believe for a moment that he means that humanly you are any of those things, because humanly you're just an illusion. Humanly you're just a mortal concept that should be dying, not trying to spiritualize itself. Should be dying daily. But it's because the spiritual teacher or practitioner has seen through the appearance of your physical body or your mentality and has actually glimpsed the Christ of you. Therefore, the principle that revealed itself to me the other night in Portland was this, that when you come here, you are presenting yourself to me that I may behold the Christ of you. And that every time you ask a practitioner or teacher for help, you are presenting yourself to them that they may behold the I, the Christ of you. You're not going to them to get rid of rheumatism or to stop smoking or drinking. You're not presenting yourself to them to get healed of a disease. You are virtually saying, please look at me. Look at me and behold the Christ incarnate in me. I long to be seen as I am, in the image and likeness of my Father, as God sees me. And if you will see me that way, I will be made whole. So you see that even after 35 years, it's folly to think you know all the truth there is. Just watch out that you don't ever get the feeling you know all the truth there is, because you don't. As much as we know, it's a grain. And every day we can add and learn new principles, because God is infinite. Therefore, never think that we've seen the whole of God.